Hey everybody, I'm so excited about today's episode. This will be a deep dive into a new resource I created, the Building Thinkers Goal Guide, Vision Planning and Strategic Reflection Activities for Multi-Potentialites. This is a series, 20 pages, of my favorite reflection activities. It's a series of 5 steps in a flow. And during this episode, if you're watching the video episode, you'll see as I'm walking through each of the pages. I would encourage you, if you are listening to the audio only episode, this is not going to make a ton of sense unless you download the guide. So feel free to listen, but we're going to get into the details of step by step through this guide. So I really encourage you to go down to the episode description and download the goal guide first so that you can have that as we walk step by step through this. If you want to get right to the goal guide and for whatever reason can't find it in the episode description, I'm going to give you the URL, courses.buildingthinkers.com/goal guide. So courses.buildingthinkers.com/goal guide. Okay, I'm going to assume everybody has now downloaded the goal guide. Maybe you've printed that out. It's a PDF, or you could have it on your iPad or other device to follow along with it. In this episode, we're going to go step by step through it, and I'll just share some of my insights in these activities, some examples, and I can't wait for you all to use it yourselves. If you're listening to this at the end of the year, it's a wonderful time, of course, pause in this time period between the end of some of the holidays and the beginning of the new year, or if you're listening to this at the end of a quarter or the end of a month, it doesn't matter. There's no bad time to pause and reflect and set goals. You'll see some of the language talks about a year reflection and looking forward, so you can adjust any of that to be a month, a quarter. A couple other notes in the Building Thinkers world. We have a couple more days to sign up for the second Learning Agility cohort. So this is the learning experience that I started in November of 2023. We've had an amazing cohort go through that experience. It's a 4-week online live immersive course really designed to help you take your curiosity and turn it into a competitive advantage. And so if you are working on something, you have a big idea and you are wrestling with how to align your learning priorities, how to set some learning goals to really make progress on this project, the Learning Agility cohort is meant to be a small cohort-based learning experience to work through a series of thinktivities to reflect in a group and start to get those arrows more clear and aligned all in the same direction of the big idea you have. And so if you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out. You can find all that information in the episode description, and really anywhere you're following me, you can get to that. And so I would love to see you become a part of the Learning Agility cohort. And one of the favorite things from the first cohort is the Learning Priority Progress Tracker. That's a personalizable tool built within Notion to help you set your learning priorities and watch that progress over time. All right. Without any further ado, here is episode 36, all about the Building Thinkers Goal Guide. Hey everybody, welcome to the Building Thinkers podcast. Today I'm so excited to share with you a step-by-step walkthrough of a new resource I created called the Building Thinkers Goal Guide. And the idea behind this is that it is vision planning and strategic goal setting and reflection activities for multi-potentialites. And so if you've got all those different ideas, all those different possibilities, and are looking for a tool to pause and reflect, whether you're listening to this at the end of the year in preparation for the new year, or whether it's a new quarter or simply a new day, there's no bad time to pause and reflect and really consider how to cultivate a life of your design, a life that's aligned to your values, a life that is aligned to the goals that you want to see in your future. And so in this episode, I'm so excited to really share this resource with you and just walk through some of the insights as I've explored it myself. And I want to start with this idea as we pause and think about reflecting in itself. Why reflection? Why goals? Why habits? Any of this. And something that's been sticking with me recently is this idea that the brain wants to know that we're making progress. And if we don't give our brain clarity that we're making progress of some sort, this desire to learn and grow is an innate desire and need as a human. And so if we don't help our brain know, are we making progress? And this doesn't have to be excessive, crazy progress or somebody else's form of progress, but just what we decide progress means to us, then our brain will look for other ways to tell if it's happening or not. And a lot of times this happens and becomes comparison and becomes envy and becomes looking around and comparing ourselves to those that we see. And so the reason why I think reflecting and setting goals is so important in my own life is to avoid that looking aroundness and thinking about what truly is it that I want more of in my life? What is it that maybe I want less of or I want to adjust? I think that sometimes it can be challenging for myself personally as a strategic consultant to turn off that strategic consulting side. And so I've decided if you can't beat them, join them. And I want to use those skills that I take into my daily work world with my clients and use them to continue to refine my life towards the things of intentionality and purpose. I love to do this at the end of the year, going into a new year. And again, there's no wrong time. I also like to sometimes pause quarterly, or if I'm going through a transition or there's a big new project, pausing and taking account of different things can be helpful. So the way that the goal guide works is that it's a downloadable PDF. I'll put the link in the episode description, and you can download that as a PDF. You can print it out, or I've also put it on my iPad before and colored in there. Whatever works for you is just right. It has 5 steps. You could do those 5 steps, like if you're planning for this. You could sit down in a longer block of time if you have a day and afternoon to work through it. I would say pausing to reflect and giving yourself some time and space can be really helpful to get the most out of it. Or you could take over a couple of days. Maybe you like to get up and have morning quiet time or journaling, prayer, and meditation. This could be a good resource to do one step at a time in that way. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for this and walk you through. This is going to be a little different from some of our other episodes, but we're going to try this. I'm going to share my screen. So in the first step, this is all about pausing and considering the year that we've had. Again, you can replace the word year with quarter or week, but if you are pausing at the end of the year, this works really nicely to think about the different things that have happened during that year. I want you to be gentle and kind to yourself. The Thinktivity, a year at a glance, the idea is to visualize your milestone, visualize the things in the time period in which you're reflecting, starting with celebrating wins. I want you to reflect on the moments that felt like success to you. Okay, I wrote that very intentionally. Not what the world's definition of success is, what you see on LinkedIn as success is. What felt like success to you? What went well? What did you accomplish? What goals did you reach or make progress toward? I think nothing is too big or too small here. So anything that comes to mind, you'll share in this. The second one is treasured moments. What things do you think about and there's this sense of gratitude that washes over you? Where or when did you feel the most present? What do you want more of? And I want you to identify at least 30 moments that brought you joy and fulfillment. And the reason for the 30 is it pushes you to think about small moments, about maybe things you weren't initially considering as these big landmark moments, but these small things. And that's going to help us to think about what we want more of as we go in to the next year or time period. Step number 3 in this first Thinktivity is about acknowledging the dips. This is where we reflect on challenges that you faced and how you navigated them. Sometimes I've literally written on my year at a glance, survived X, Y, and Z, and so perhaps you're ready as you write things like that to see your resilience, the wisdom gained, and the things to adjust going forward. Or it may be that release is more helpful. And sometimes along those lines, I use the idea the old is gone, the new has come as a helpful mental release. I'd also note that I've done 4 years of therapy, and so I am not intending that this activity allows for full processing of everything that's happened in a year. So please, if you are involved in therapy, take some of the things that might be dips that feel hard and heavy to that place as well as you process. And then we're going to take all these things and make our milestones visible. As we've thought about celebrating the wins, our treasured moments, and acknowledging the dips, then out of that list is an opportunity to make them visible. And I'll show you what that looks like on page 3 of the goal guide. And so you'll see there, if you've got the goal guide, there's an area for celebrating wins, treasured moments, and acknowledging dips. And so that's where you'll go through each of those steps and fill it out as almost a planning page. And then on page 4, you have a place that says a year at a glance, visualize your milestones. And it's just a blank white page with a little 4 at the top because we're at step 4 of this Thinktivity. And that's for you to visualize in whatever way works for you. I love doing sketch notes, which are like little note drawings, and it's not about art, it's just about the ideas and mapping it out. And so I like to do that. But you may end up with a list or a series of arrows or a up and down little map or timeline. Whatever works for you, but this is the place to take those wins and dips and treasured moments and map it out in a way that feels good to you. I love to look back at these. These are almost, they're like treasured maps and memories of the years past. In step 2, in this Thinktivity, you'll see what's happening in your world and a big set of concentric circles with a star shape around it. And so the idea here is to first think about different categories of life. I put 8 here that you can consider, but I want you to look at those and whatever areas of your life you want to explore, write each of those categories next to the little key as in those boxes, and we're going to color code those. So I have some category ideas: health, including physical and mental health, spirituality, abundance or finances, career, significant other and romance, relationships, which can include friends and family, personal growth and learning, recreation and play. I've seen some folks include home or their space as one of these. So whatever resonates with you, areas of your life that you want to reflect on, you'll include those in the key. Then I want you to quietly sit with each of those categories, and you'll color in the ring, rating each area of your life from 1 to 10. And this is not a perfect scientific number. It's just, what's your instinct? How's it going in this area of your life? If you had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, how's it going? How fulfilled do you feel in this area? If 10 is the most beautiful thing you could imagine in this area, the edge of what seems in your mind to be a future you could imagine at that 10, where are you? And so no right or wrong answer here, and color in each section of the ring. Okay, in step 3, I want you to, in the little triangle that goes around the edges of the circle, so if you are watching, so here on the triangle part, I want you to consider one specific thing, or if more come to you, go ahead and put them down. But see if you can get to one specific thing that will continue to help us as we go forward. That, if achieved, would elevate the category from your current rating to the next highest number, and do that for each of the categories. As I have thought about this step, you choose if you want to narrow to that one, or if you want to include at this point just lots of ideas of areas for improvement within there, because we can narrow those down later. You don't need to think about this as this doesn't need to go anywhere unless you want to share it. This could go to sharing with a close friend to get feedback, but I think consider this a very authentic place to, if there's an area you're either not content with but you feel like you should be, put what you really think here and then hide it if you don't want anyone to see it. Or if you are really beyond satisfied in one of these areas, fill it up. There's no right or wrong answer to what's happening in your world. I really love this quote from James Clear, and I think that it helps us to consider why we do these reflections. And I hinted at this in the beginning when we were talking about just the reason for reflection. And I just want to read this quote that came from a recent James Clear email. He's the author of Atomic Habits, and he has a wonderful newsletter that has 3 simple items in it each time. He said, "Of all the ways you could be spending your precious time and attention, it's very unlikely that you're currently spending it in the optimal way. The only path I know for figuring out a better way to spend your life is to sit and think. You simply have to carve out some time to think carefully about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what you're really trying to achieve. Nobody stumbles into a well-lived life. It has to be cultivated. Reflection and review are critical." It's beautiful. Thank you, James. As always, the clarity, no pun intended, is huge. And I think that spending the time to do this and reflect quietly yourself helps us to not put ideas of progress as somebody else's ideas of progress, because 24/7 we're bombarded by everybody else's highlight reel on all of the socials and the things that we should be doing. And if we don't decide for ourselves what we want those things to be, then we may feel this additional pressure and urgency and overwhelm by everyone else's ideas of that, or even the way advertising is positioned as all these areas we've got to improve. Well, maybe that's not the area we want to most improve in our own life. And so I really like this simple T-chart that is, what am I turning from and what am I turning towards? What do I want less of in my life? What do I want more of in my life? That's it. And as I thought about what I want less of, you might think about what no longer serves you, what doesn't align to the life that you want to live. I've recognized in my own life in different seasons that, for example, I was using stress and adrenaline to get some things done. And it no longer served me. When I recognized it no longer served me, just simply identifying that was the first step towards shifting. And so I continue to put this on my own, less of and more of. Mine this year says, I'm turning from stress as fuel to impact as fuel. And that idea of fuel comes from John Acuff, his most recent book, All It Takes Is a Goal. He has a chapter where he speaks about this, and it really resonated with me. A couple others that are on my list. Let's see. I'm turning from earning rest and play to seeking out and protecting rest and play. And so I love that idea. I also I'm turning from fear of others' opinions to peace and discernment from sources who I want to speak into the fabric of my life. So that's the idea. What are we turning from? What are we turning towards? I hope that's helpful for you to consider and identify some things kindly and with self-compassion that you want to adjust going forward into the next year or the next time period. Okay, I'm so excited about step 4. Step 4 is where the hexagons come in. And so you may see behind me, let's see, can we see them here? Okay, see these hexagons behind me? In the past summer, as I was doing some visioning around business and life and these same areas of life that we did in step 2, uh, they came back around for me because I wanted to build out a little bit further. Okay, what does it look like to make that progress from a 7 to an 8 or a 6 to a 7, whatever it was? So what would it actually look like to make some of that progress? And so I decided to make these vision boards. I made them as hexagons because I like to think about the way that the different areas of our life connect together. And then I'll continue to build on that here in a moment. But here, I think about how potential is the gap between where you are and where you could be. So crafting a vision board is about getting more clear about that second part. Where could you be? And instead of leaving it as this vague and nebulous idea with a picture of a house, although that's fine, if you want to put a picture of a house on there, great. But what does that look like? What does that mean? And so where do you want to be? I want you here to settle in and have fun with this. Consider each area of your life you want to dream up and design, and each hexagon is going to be one of those categories. I'm recommending not picking more than 5 here, but go for it if you want to do more. I like to select about 5 of those life categories, label it at the top of the hexagon, and then build it out however you want. If you love your color-coded pens, you use your color-coded pens. If you want to draw pictures, if you want to cut out pictures and make that map of your vision board, do that. Okay. When you're thinking about each of these areas of your life, you get to design your life. Dream big. In this step, I want you to throw reason and what you think is possible out of the window. Sometimes I find myself tempered in what I put on things like this because I'm like, well, I don't know if that's feasible in the next year. Stop it. Put it on there. If you are envisioning it, if it's in your mind's eye, put it there and see how that goes. And so as you reflect, one of the things I think about is what can you envision in each area that would bring joy, that would bring fulfillment or impact? And you can also try on different mental lenses, such as if you have the play and recreation category, life category, for example. What if money and time were no object? What would you envision for play and recreation? That's where you can cut out your picture of the vacation, but only if that's what really resonates for you. Not because somebody else said that. What would you envision for play and recreation? Maybe it's a comfy, cozy blanket curled up on the couch and no expectations. Jot down those notes, jot down quotes. You can add sketch notes, drawings, anything that represents the vision of what you want to see come to be. One of the questions that I stumbled upon, there was this notebook in a local shop that had just a whole series of different questions. And one that really stood out to me was this idea of, what if your sense of wonder was stronger than your sense of fear? And I like the way this is worded because I remember reading Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In, and she said, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And I thought that was helpful for a little bit of time. And then I read something by Seth Godin where he talked about dancing with fear. And basically the idea that fear doesn't necessarily always go away, but it's what we do with it. And so I like the way this is worded because what if your sense of wonder was stronger than your sense of fear? I think when we're run by that sense of fear, we stop short of really going for it because we're afraid. What will people say? What if I spell something wrong? What if there are trolls on the internet? What if I fail? What if it doesn't work? And so instead going to this sense of wonder is the other side of it. What if it does work? What if your dreams are really possible? What if starting that business can really happen? What if the momentum that you're experiencing can continue. So this question has really helped me think about these vision boards. So the idea here is, if you're on one of the pages with the hexagonal thinking vision boards, up at the top there's an area that says life category. So there you would write in the life category. So let's say play and recreation, and then put whatever you want on that hexagon that represents moving forward on that scale of 0 to 10. What do you envision would be that 10? These hexagons are the 10 on your scale, okay? Reason out the window. So the next couple pages are that. So I made 5 pages for those. If you want to print these out on colorful paper like what I've got back there, go for it. And I can't wait to see what y'all do. So now that you have, from step 4, your vision of the 10, your vision of everything you could imagine at this current time, thinking about the future in each of those life categories. Now, what does it take to get there? What does it take to make progress? It takes wise action. And I like to think about wise action as the combination of goals and habits. And this wise action is compounded over time as we invest in our goals and habits, like a honeycomb. A honeycomb is built by worker bees, and they consistently and intentionally craft these little hexagonal cells, and they collectively build upon each other, those little cells, and they're durable, and they're flexible, and they're multi-purpose. And so I love this metaphor for our own wise action that compounds, that's intentional, that's flexible, and that helps you create each of your envisioned categories for life. And so in this final step, this is where you build out your goals and habits, your initial cut at your goals and habits. So we're going to identify those that will help you bring that life vision from your hexagons into reality. So I have these envisioned as smaller little hexagons. So on page 18, you'll see on the left-hand side a spot to put each of the life categories that you visioned on those hexagons. And then you'll see just a series, a little map. There's no right or wrong way to do this. The idea is putting goals and habits, individual goals and habits, in each of those hexagons. And then that helps you build the map for what it is that will help you move towards progress in each area of life that you want to design. So a little bit more about goals and habits. I mentioned that I like to think about wise action as goals plus habits. Goals are the tangible milestones of your unleashed potential as you make progress towards your larger vision. That's why I like this idea of the little hexagons building into the bigger hexagon, making our honeycomb of life. So you can use, I wrote, some of the hexagons to map out the goals, because some of the other ones you can use for habits. There's no right or wrong amount to do goals versus habit. And then when we think about habits, so these are the recurring actions and behaviors that make our overall vision attainable. Our habits are cultivated intentionally to align with our goals. If we have a goal that involves writing a book, breaking it down into the habit of writing for X hours, or I've seen goals that have 500 hours in a year of writing, for example. And then we know that we're making progress bit at a time to get to 500 hours over the year. What are the habits that are cultivated intentionally to align with our goals? And they transform these small, consistent acts, they transform into profound life changes. Simply moving your body consistently has profound life changes on your health. Reading consistently new content in different areas than your field of practice has profound life changes over time. Choosing to do less mindless scrolling and more intentional learning, profound life changes over time. Just as money compounds with interest over time, so too do these little choices. These are the consistent steps that collectively pave the path towards making your goals and larger vision attainable. This is that final step really thinking about your goals and your habits, mapping them out here. No right or wrong way. If you need more, you can print this page twice. And then personally, I take it from here, step 5, and pull it into something like Notion or a digital tool to be able to look at these over time. I'm working on a tool in Notion that may be included in a future learning experience to help with this as well. But in the meantime, here we are at step 5. This is where you put the pieces together. I hope that walking through those 5 steps of this goal setting and reflection guide really helped you pause and consider the amazing things that are already happening in your life. I hope it brought a sense of gratitude for the things that you've achieved, perhaps a sense of resilience in the things that you've made it to the other side of. And I hope it's giving you more clarity on where you're headed in this next time period ahead, whether that's you're reflecting here at the end of the year for the new year ahead, or if you're listening to this at another point in time. And so I want to speak this final message to you that is how I'm just thinking about this. I'm thinking about you out there going through your reflection guide, and I want to share a message that's been helpful for me. And it's this idea that, all those things you've always wanted to do, you should do them. And may you stand in the confidence of your intentionality and wise action, that what you put into this. May you know you're not too late, that you have what it takes and there's room for you. So may you be kind to yourself along the way. Take a deep breath and start. You'll never regret the growth you gain from cultivating a life of your dreams. I, again, want to thank you all so much for stepping through this goal guide. One final thing, if you use the goal guide and you find it helpful, I would love if you would share with me on LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever, or send me an email. Show me, if you want to share some of the images of what you reflected on, I'd love to just see it. If you have feedback on what was helpful or not helpful or things to change in the future, I'd really love to know that. Thanks so much for listening to the Building Thinkers podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends. And if you enjoyed what you heard, please leave a podcast rating and review. That helps more listeners find us in the world of podcasting algorithms. You can find out more about my learning and development strategy services at buildingthinkers.com. And remember, there's no limit to what you can learn.